Story time today comes to you from the Holland track in Western Australia and is about a trip I took in 1993 in my Land Rover Defender. It wasn't of course called a Defender then, they were called 110s. It was a V8, it was my second four-wheel drive, and it had replaced my Range Rover. I bought my Land Rover Defender, I'm going to call it Defender because to avoid confusion, in 1989, and sold my Range Rover about a year after that. So this was now my new 4x4. I did a trip with a friend of mine to the Makgadikgadi salt pans. Those of you who know my programs will know how much I love the Makgadikgadi, the enormous wide area of salt pans. It's vast. And I went there with, did the trip with a friend of mine driving his Range Rover, his Bahama Gold Range Rover, and we'd done a number of trips together. And this was the first year where I started to take on the mantle of motoring journalist. My first book was published that year. In fact, I seem to remember at the time of me actually going on that trip, we had just received our first copy before we went. The reason why the trip is memorable is how many times we got stuck. Now I say we, not so much me, but my mate. See, the Makgadikgadi pans are like any salt pan really. When they become soft, there's a crust on top. When that becomes soft and the vehicle breaks through, underneath is just bottomless, endless goo. And it is particularly bad on the Makgadikgadi. There are places in the Makgadikgadi where even when it is dry, it never dries sufficiently to bear the weight of a vehicle. You drop your tire pressures right down, you try and, you drive very carefully. You have to drive on the power band, so if you do break through, you can power through. It's challenging, difficult driving. And this was the first of my trips. Was it the 93? No, it was the second that I had filmed with a video camera. But the first one that I'd kind of taken seriously, thinking, I might be able to use this footage somewhere. Maybe we can, and that was not the reason for the trip, but certainly I wanted to shoot and make a video of the trip. And we did. We made a video. Mid-June 1993, the month my first book was released, was the month we headed back to the Pans. Destination, Kokonya Island. So we're now going along the edge of a game fence. Sour Pan is in that area over there. So eventually we will come across a gate, and we will cross the gate, go through the gate, which is crossing the game fence, and then we will head towards Sour Pan.
You've got 4 cylinders not doing zip.
I know.
Alright, what's happening? I think it's one of the carbs. Let's just work out which one.
Or a thing might have broken.
Sorry.
Or a thing might have broken.
Float.
The diaphragm.
Well diagnosed, Mark.
The diaphragm?
Yeah. Well, it's not lifted.
Which side's broken?
This one.
Oh good, because this is next to a prickly bush. This is a vehicle prophylactic from an SU carburetor, West German specification. And it has, like many of these things do, a hole in it. Maybe it's been leaking for a long time.
But what makes this trip special when I look back at it now is, as I said, how many times my mate got stuck, and our method of navigation. The navigation was old-fashioned. We used a compass, and we used a map and a protractor. Navigation was done in the traditional way, dead reckoning with the aid of a compass.
347.
So we don't want to go too west.
Due west.
We don't want to go too west.
Where's Kokonya Island?
But you see that there? You see that there?
Yeah.
That is, I bet you that is that, and we are here.
Just say again? You bet what?
No, due north, I beg your pardon. This car's telling lies.
Yeah, no, just put it on the ground there because you're going to get...
Today with GPS we're spoiled, and thank goodness we're spoiled, because it's actually so much more sure. But one becomes lazy with GPS, and because you take it for granted. And the GPS has let me down more than once. It's let me down while I've been flying in an aircraft. It's let me down a couple of times while I've been driving. So I always travel with a paper map, always, and I rely more on the map than the GPS. I use the GPS largely to verify my location and use the paper map to navigate, even today.
You're somewhere on that line, hold that.
Because this makes such a lot of sense, John.
Yeah.
The two spits, that spit and that spit. I think what we should do, drive along the edge of the pan.
Okay.
All the way along there. Down to there. That's what I say. We're there.
We think.
We're there. We're there. And we're going to head straight across there. Here. We're going to end up at that spit there. Now that spit we will then decide which course to take, but then probably we will follow the edge of the pan around here, and that's our destination, Kokon.
It's an incredible scene.
And in this particular expedition, we were going around the outside of an enormous salt flat, which might sound easy, but it's not that easy. It's easier in your living room when you're just looking at the map, but out there in this flat ground with no or very, very few landmarks, it becomes really challenging. But more challenging than that is the mud, this dreadful, deep, cloying mud. Now I said to my friend, look, please would you mind, staying behind me? I've driven the pan several times, and I'm getting better at avoiding the bad bits. Can you stay behind me and straddle my tracks? Particularly if I break through. If you can see that I've started to break through, then you'll straddle. Don't sit in my tracks, straddle my tracks, make new tracks. Because once it's broken, you will go down.
Okay, it's Monday morning, we're packing up to leave. Last night we had a very, very calm night. Wonderful, wonderful sunset. We didn't make it to Kokonya Island. The time got a bit late, so we're off in that direction. And we will this time keep to the edge of the pan, owing to the very hazardous conditions we encountered yesterday. And we don't want to try our luck again.
I think you're all talking.
But he's a very kind of A-type personality, and he's not a follower kind of guy. He became and is a very well-known and highly respected surgeon. You don't get to become a surgeon by being a follower. And so he found it difficult to drive behind me. And it was never more than 30 minutes behind me, and he would overtake me. And I just would close my eyes, and the next thing, there he is up ahead, he's stuck. The back is broken through, the vehicle is actually sitting with with its nose in the air, front wheels backs on its axles, and I would then have to try and pull him out. In 1993 there was no such thing as a kinetic strap. We had pull straps, we had winches. Well, we had winches on the Range Rover, not on my vehicle. I didn't have a winch. I had a high lift jack, and we had no traction aids with us at all, and so we had to get him out. I remember on the period of that one day, we got stuck. He got stuck 7 times. The Range Rover bogged 7 times that long day, and the 110 once. The vehicle in the lead paid a high price.
What should we use that rather than one?
And every time he got stuck, he was in front of me. He couldn't bear it. He would stay behind me. And each time we got stuck, it would sometimes take anything from 20 minutes until the last one was 3 hours. Now the last one was interesting, and it's kind of captured on film, but let me explain what we did. Jonty, who was driving with Mark, came up with the idea of breaking the suction. Our trouble was the Range Rover was now bottomed on front and back axles, and no matter what we did with straps and winches, it would not move at all. It was stuck. So we would break the suction by using the high lift, pack stuff underneath it, but because we didn't have any max tracks or similar traction aids, it would gradually just, and so there was this suction that we had to relieve the suction while pulling. And he came up with the idea, and what he did is he took the high lift, you can see it in the film, he took the high lift and cranked it up, probably not very high, took the cable over the high lift foot to the vehicle. My vehicle was the anchor that I had actually got stuck in some sand, something I could easily get out of, but it was actually, I'd bogged it down so it would be a good firm anchor, otherwise it would just drag me straight back. As we winched in, the high lift came up. We could also jack the high lift, making this angle more acute. So it was pulling the jack up. So as it was pulling the jack up, the angle increased, and so the front of the Range Rover came up. And we did that twice, and out she came by breaking the suction and pulling at the same time. And I'd never seen that technique anywhere, read it anywhere. We might have been the first people on earth to have ever done it. I doubt it, but it's nice to think that one can do something original. But I learned something amazing that really, really worked. And after 3 hours of struggling, we managed to get the Range Rover out. Soon after that, I got stuck. I was in the lead at that point, and I just got stuck. And we used the high lift and half an hour or so of jacking and pushing. Jack it up and push it, do it twice, and we got out of that predicament.
Life was great.
Well, we're now heading towards Kokonyo Island. A tricky 1 kilometer crossing right across the middle of the pan. Well, we'll just follow him, yeah?
Yeah, we're just saying that we don't think we'll cope with another bogging down.
The only way you get to the island is to walk at this stage.
Yeah,
It's
well, we
wet
figured
out
that we might as well just camp here. And while we set up camp, try and do what we can, the guys can do what they can to dig the vehicle out.
there. Yeah.
So what do you think, Johns?
What?
Plan of action.
Plan of action. Just get the thing out of the mud, that's it. No big deal.
I hope you enjoyed that little story. Thank you for watching. If you would like to be part of what I do and help me make more videos, support me on Patreon. Click the Patreon button on the screen now.